Evening, everybody. I call this meeting of the Board of Education today, Wednesday, April 8th, 2026 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, please do the roll call.
Gary Hefner.
Here.
Susan Mitchell.
Here.
Bonnie Takuchi.
Here.
William Clark.
Here.
Bronwyn Rowntree. Here. Chris Scanlon.
Here.
Jean-Michel Tijerina.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're up to the budget presentation is what we're here for. Walter, you're up. I'm going to move to I can never see from the side. No, I'll be back. I'll be back.
I know you want
Okay, good evening, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at budget presentation number 4. Within this presentation, we're going to be looking at topics of discussion. Some quick reminders on some dates. April 21st is the Board of Ed adoption of the proposed budget, BOCES budget, and property tax report card. May 6th is a public budget hearing, and May 19th is the annual budget vote and election of Board of Ed.
And Walter, the board sees fit. We may need to have some additional meetings next week because the budget has to be adopted legally by April 21st, correct?
That is correct. So here are some topics for discussion, and they will be in this order. So we're going to look at the cost to continue budget, which was presented on Monday, enrollment, the Tuxedo Reserve or residential development, fund balance considerations, contingency budget, and future considerations. So the cost to continue budget, which was, we had a budget this year of our $15,096,754. The proposed budget on Monday was $16,747,237, and the change there. So we had a 10.93% change of $1,650,483. Now there were some key drivers for this. So as mentioned, we had special ed costs that were going up, transportation, and employee benefits. Of these drivers, 7.68 is out of that 10.93 increase. And then, of course, we did have some revenue challenges. So we had a decrease in state aid, decrease in other revenue, and the 0% tax levy constraint for this year.
And Walter, as pointed out at the last meeting, even though this year is a 10% increase, the average over the 2 years is how much?
It was 5%, I believe.
In the 5% range,
Yes.
right? Or an average over 2 years.
Can I start with a question already?
Sure.
Can I just ask, how does this compare to districts similar in size, our budget?
Well, there aren't too many similar in size to us. There's small, medium, and large, and we're nano. But we are getting some data from the state to share with you at the next meeting.
Okay.
But Jeff, wouldn't it be fair to say even another district our size, because of our tax base, that we're not only small, but regardless of our size, our state aid is ridiculously minuscule. Our state aid is ridiculously minuscule. So it's not just the size, it's the fact that Albany gives us almost nothing.
Right. If it weren't for the save harmless provision of the budget, we wouldn't get anything. We got 1% under the governor's proposed budget, and if the legislative thing goes through, we're going to get 2%, but it doesn't really amount to much. Our state aid has decreased to about $50,000, so we got no help there. And the other revenue.
Just to be clear, to cut you off, that's the decrease.
Yeah.
Compared to other districts, the average pupil in New York State gets X amount of dollars. We're way below that, and we got cut.
Correct, because our wealth ratio is so high, the average in the state is 1.0. Ours is in the 13% range. So we don't really get any state aid. Districts, the last few years, the state has trued up the foundation aid formula. So a number of districts got significant, some neighboring districts got, and this is in perpetuity, they got $10, $20 million a year in additional state aid. We got nothing because of the foundation aid formula. So state aid has been no help. The other revenue has been down as well. So everything hinges for us on our property tax levy. And as we said before, and we'll get into a little bit later, the development is 3 years behind schedule, but we'll talk about that more. I'll let Walter continue.
Walter, before we leave this slide, would you explain the employee benefits line and what part of it is out of our control?
That'd be the rates, Bonnie, the rate, like the health insurance rate.
Right.
That's up 7%, Orange Ulster Health. And there's nothing we can do about that. That's just the increase that the health plan experienced. It's still, we pay less than the NISHIP, the New York State Health Insurance Plan, which many of the districts pay throughout through state. So the rate we have no control over. So that's a significant part of the benefits increase.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that for people who might be listening in.
Yeah, all the increases that you're seeing up here are things that were, for example, the special ed. This is special ed is dictated by federal law, and the decisions made here are based upon student need through the IEP process. And there were some students that the annuals go on throughout the year. So last year there were, I believe, 2 students that came in after the tax levy was adopted, so they didn't get picked up in last year's budget. So this year we got 2 more, so there's a total, I believe, 4. Is that right,
yes.
Walter? So there was no controlling that. The transportation, as I said previously, that we had been underpaying according to the market value for quite a number of years. We've been enjoying a very low rate. Unfortunately, in September, the vendor, Matt Buss, who was acquired, like many others, was acquired by First Student, and they decided not to renew the contract. And so that required the district to go out for either a bid or an RFP. We went out for a straight bid, and the amounts came back about 69% was the bid. We had one bidder because, as I said before, there's been a number of consolidations in the transportation industry in pupil transportation. So we had one bidder. It was a 69% increase. We had a consultant, probably one of the best in the business. When the person at State Ed passed away, the director, this person is the one that they called in to help the State Ed department manage the state transportation department. And that person was a very adept negotiator and negotiated a much better contract. So you see an increase of $415,000, but it would be another $300,000 had we not done that negotiation.
Jeff, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the employee benefits. You talked about the medical, that we can't really negotiate better. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Tuxedo School District negotiates with many other school districts to get a below market rate medical insurance coverage. So our starting point is well below the state average, but even with that lower general rate, the rates have gone up this year, 7%.
That's right. A number of years back, health insurance was going up by double digits every year. And then we had a little bit of a leveling off. NISHIP, which is New York State Health Insurance Plan, which many of New York municipalities participate in. We're in the Orange Ulster Plan, which is for the local Orange Ulster school districts. We have a cheaper rate than the NISHIP, but despite that, and again, to your point, they put that out for an RFP, just like NISHIP does. So different insurance companies bid for that work through the RFP process, and we get the best prices that way. But unfortunately, we got hit with a 7%. And I think we also had some employer contribution issues as well. Correct, Walter?
That
We
is
had TRS and ERS increases. Well, I'm sorry, not
It was
TRS, we had
ERS.
ERS. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's employee retirement system. By law, we're required to make pension contributions for all employees. The faculty is the TRS as well as the administrators, and all of the support staff would be the employee retirement system, the ERS.
Before you leave the slide, just on the bottom right-hand side, 0% tax levy constraint from 25, 26?
This year, so for the contingency budget.
So basically, we got a zero from the taxpayers.
Correct,
This year.
increase, yeah.
It's 0% increase.
Yes,
So
that is correct.
when we look at things in a 5-year span, we can count in a zero this year.
Yes,
Okay, I know I opened my tax bill and I said, look at that.
yeah.
There's a zero there. Imagine that.
So the next thing we're going to look at is the long-term planning study. This was done by Western Suffolk BOCES for the 2 years you see up on there, from 21 to 22 and 23 to 24.
And I just want to say, I put a slide in there which Walter removed, which was a nice illustration of a storm, because, folks, this is a perfect storm for this school district. All these factors coming together at the same time, it's all hitting us all at once. And this is one of the items that's hitting us, is also enrollment.
Yeah. So for the 21-22 enrollment, you'll see their projections up there for the 25-26 school year. You'll see right here the 241. That was the total for pre-K through 12, was their projected enrollment.
And
Then-
that's without the development. That doesn't include the Tuxedo. It used to be called Tuxedo Farms. Now they call it the Reserve. That was just supposed to be the growth in the community on its own. And we obviously brought BOCES in 21-22 to get a study so that we could start some long range planning, and that's the number they came up with. And then we had them back.
Yeah, so we had them back, in 23-24, and then for this one, you'll see October 25, it was 207. So the current enrollment in the district right now currently is 173 students.
And the projection that they had was at the time a 20% amount of students going to private and parochial, and what we're experiencing right now is about a 30%. But as you can see, we fell far below the enrollment projections, and we'll get into what the development was going to materialize or propose to.
So the next thing is enrollment. So we're looking here at student-teacher ratio. So the ones on the left-hand side, this goes back to 2014, 2015, from when Greenwood Lake students attended at that time. So the total staff to student ratio is 11-1. If we break it down for GGM, here on the left was 10-1, GFB was your 12-1. If we now fast forward to this year, our student to teacher ratio is 6-1, and then broken down here, you'll see GGM is 7-1 and GFB is 5-1.
So Jeff, I believe you've spoken about this, but declining enrollment in public schools is not just in schools is not just a phenomenon that's affecting Tuxedo, right? It's a nationwide phenomenon, and we're seeing declining enrollment also at other private schools in our area. So this is not an issue that is unique to Tuxedo, unique to Orange County. It's a national issue.
It's a national issue, and the governor has also discussed about looking at the state aid formula again, because the amount of money the state's contributing to education continues to rise. The state's not always in the greatest of financial shape, and they're saying if the enrollments are going down, we should adjust what we're contributing to education. So yeah, it is a national phenomenon, and it is certainly happening in New York State. So we're not unique.
Ron, when I actually did a dive into some of this, I mentioned it a few months ago. When you look at Tuxedo versus county, region, state, and federal, and regardless of going back 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, yes, actual numbers here have dropped, but could any of those time periods or any of those comparisons, we're actually less decrease in enrollment. So meaning we're doing better than almost everybody else. So when somebody says enrollment is decreasing, perhaps by pure numbers, but compared to everybody else, that's completely untrue.
Right. I just think it's important that we consider the broader context to a lot of these questions, because a lot of these problems are not just happening here. So just as we talk about these issues, just keep in mind that these situations are happening everywhere.
So next, what we did here was we looked at student ratio comparisons to districts, Scarsdale, Jericho, and Florida, as well as the United States, New York State, Orange County on average, special act schools, and blue ribbon schools.
I have a question about this. When you're talking about student-teacher ratio, are the schools that are being used as the comparators, do they have maximum enrollment in their classes? I mean, I can't remember what the New York State maximum is. Is it 30 per class? So how is this ratio being, how can we compare this ratio, I guess?
We just selected some blue ribbon schools and some gold standard schools. Scarsdale and Jericho are often cited as some of the best public schools in the country, which is the direction we're looking to go in. And Florida is a local school district, the most comparable to us, I would say, in size. And then we compared it to the United States. New York is always less than the other states, or I should say the country as a whole. New York is 12-1, Orange County is 13-14-1, and then the special act districts are 6.1 or 9-1, and blue ribbons are 13-1 or 16-1. So we're significantly below all of the others, and that's due to the decline in the enrollment.
For sure, but the other places are, what I'm asking is, are the other schools offering, say, multiple fourth grades, and then it's a question of how many students are in each section of fourth
Yes.
grade? Right. So we're offering one fourth grade with however many fourth graders we end up having. So I'm just trying to understand how to compare these numbers the most effectively. It might be helpful to get a little bit more context in the total number of kids that are, from which these ratios are derived.
Well, Ron, when you're in your hypothetical, if the state maximum is much higher, but these top schools are opting to have, in your scenario, multiple fourth grade classes, that means these top schools have already predetermined that these are the best ratios to have.
Right, so lower than the state requirement. And I don't know if my number might be based on New York City, not New York State, so I could be wrong.
And Jeff, remind me again, the bottom number here, this 6-to-1 ratio, what do we expect our student population to do once the development is complete?
Well, the projection at that time, when it was done, was, I believe, 360. Is that right, Walter? You remember the 319 for us? It was 360, but adjusting for the private and parochial, we were going to get 319 ourselves. So we were going to be, the time that AKRF did the study and Western Suffolk BOCES did their review, we were going to be comparable to where the district was back in the old days of Greenwood Lake. The only benefit is that we would not have to worry about the renewing contracts every year. These are going to be permanent residents of the district.
So if we did say 300 people came in, 300 kids came in over the next handful of 5, 10 years, whatever it is, how would that ratio change? We'd go from 6-to-1 to 11-to-1, 12-to-1?
We'll
we have a sense
calculate
of that?
out. We'll calculate that
Okay,
out, and we'll get you
thanks.
that.
So on the next slide, here are some student projections for grades 7 through 12. Once again, going back to 14-15, there was a total there of 337. And that, once again, was when Greenwood Lake was here. Currently, in 7 through 12, we have 74 students. And then if we're looking at, with Tuxedo Reserve coming in, projecting that out from the AKRF research, we're going to look at in the high school alone getting an additional 160 students, so that enrollment will go up to 234. So with the Tuxedo Reserve, so the delay, as we mentioned before, of the 3 years, it has caused some projections to fluctuate quite a bit. As far as with our tax assessments, the tax assessments from the Tuxedo Reserves, because of the build-out, have been delayed. And then, of course, as mentioned before, the student enrollment, therefore, is delayed as well. So we were expected, by the time the build-out was done, an additional 319 students in total. So the next thing we're going to look at is potential utilization of fund balance. So there's really two categories here. We have our reserves, and then we have our unassigned fund balance.
Just so you know, we invited our auditor to be here tonight, and they were planning to be, but they had a they had an emergency they had to tend to. But we wanted to get their input, or give the board their input as to what they felt, because some districts or some folks, depending upon your aversion to risk, some would say, oh, just commit all the reserves. I had another good picture here, which Walter took out, of showing what committing reserves too early is like in a battle. You don't want to commit your reserves too soon, because if it is a protracted situation, the next year you're going to be in a devastating situation. So Walter will give you a little bit of an overview, but we'll see if we can get the auditor here at the next budget meeting to discuss this in a little more depth.
So when we're looking at the restricted fund balance, so these are these categories over here where you see capital reserve, employee benefits, accrued liability, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, retirement contributions, repair reserve. So potentially you could utilize some of these restricted reserves. Now you can utilize them based on 1 year's expense. So what you'll see there with those three particular categories, those would be the three that we could use. So the unemployment insurance, we potentially could use the $94,347. Workman's comp is $19,929, and then the retirement contributions is the full amount there, the $232,269. Now, once again, this is a potential utilization of the restricted funds. The total of those three there is $346,545. And then you have the unassigned fund balance projections. So unassigned fund balance. So at the end of the fiscal year 24-25, we had $1,347,839 in unassigned fund balance. Currently this year, we're using $690,660. We did receive our second Tuxedo Reserve mitigation payment, the $1.25 million, and as of right now, the amount of fund balance used for the budget for 26-27 is $500,000. So the projected amount of unassigned fund balance ending this year is $1,407,179. And this will bring us into contingency budget. So the first thing we're going to look at here is how are we affected by the contingency budget this year? So in this double line graph, what you'll see here in the red line, this is the contingency budget line, and in the blue line is if we went to our tax cap. So in this case here for the year 25-26, if we went to the tax cap, we could have raised $13,072,718. So the difference between the two, you'll see there, is that $376,269. That's where we could have been. Now, if we continue these projections out to next year, what you'll notice here is this, as the lines grow, right, you'll see here the $252,359. That's what we'll lose the following year. That's what and you'll see here, that's what we lose the year after that and the year after that. Now, the reason you're seeing here such a drop between the 376 and the 252 is because of the carryover. So it was mentioned the other day about the carryover. So this is the tax cap calculation. Because because this year we went to contingency, that 12,696,000, we can carry over the difference here between the total levy limit before excursions and and our proposed levy for the current year. So that's where you're seeing there that yellow highlighted, the 132,626. So if we go back to the slide, you'll see here the slope of this line segment did increase quite a bit, but that's because of the carryover. And then also want to point out, so this will be lost in the 252 will be lost kind of forever, and also there is a little bit of compounding there through the years as well. So the loss there, if we look just at the 4 years of revenue loss, just in the total 4 years, is 1,149,171. So now let's look at our draft budget comparisons. So the one on the left is our draft budget, okay? This includes our state aid, other aid, our foundation, our fund balance that we're going to allocate the 500, and the 14,612,911 would be the levy. That levy would give us a tax rate increase of 9.45%. In the middle is based off of if we reduced that amount, if we had budget reductions of $750,000. A reduction in that would give us a 3.85% tax rate increase. And then obviously the one, and I'll talk a little bit about this one, the one on the right side, it would be if we went into contingency budget again, which would mean that we would lose $1.9 million. So what happens under...
Walter, can you go back?
Sure.
To the last slide? So that middle chart there, if I'm understanding you correctly, the draft budget with the reductions, if we want to get the tax rate down on the right to 3.85, we have to use the middle column there, correct?
Yes.
And so the people sitting at this table right now need to find $750,000 of cuts in program and other expenses to get there.
To get to that particular rate, yes.
Thank you.
Gary, I just want to add, it's not just the people at this table. I've also invited folks from the union, the teachers union, and from the TEU to partner with us to look for any sort of revenue enhancements or expenditure reductions as well. And we've also reached out to our partners at BOCES. We had a meeting with them to get some of their ideas. So this is definitely a collaborative effort. It's not just the folks up here.
I didn't mean to minimize.
No.
Challenge
Yep.
these people. To
Sure. No, I just want to make sure that everyone knows this isn't a few people in a back room doing this. We are trying to be very transparent about this, and we're trying to get as much help from as many people as we can. Because I've said to the staff earlier, we're all in this together, and we really need to get this budget passed.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? It was going back to the slide where it's analysis of fund balance per audited financial statements. You had mentioned in the restricted fund balance that you could use those 3 areas on the right. What would be the implication of that? Like,
Could we just make sure we get the right up on the chart?
It's up there. Yeah, that's correct.
Point out which
so those 3
The
on the side,
restricted.
like, if
People
we
want-
used
Yep, sure.
those 3,
Yep.
what would be the implication of that? Like, what's the result of that, or how would that be? What's the pros and cons of using that or not using that?
Well, the pro is we get through this year and we pray for a better year next year. Okay, these are restricted for purposes. So the unassigned you can use for any purpose, but restricted you've got to use for the purposes that are delineated in the respective laws that these reserves were created under. So you can use them for those purposes: unemployment, workers' comp, and retirement contributions. So we would reduce in the expenditure budget. I'm sorry, I have my back to you. You can reduce your expenditure lines in those areas, and utilize the reserves to do that. The only problem is whenever you use reserves or unassigned fund balance, the problem is that you're deferring the problem to another period, because at some point you've got to cover that difference. There's a difference between where your expenditures are and where your revenues are. So at some point you've got to close that gap. And so utilizing them this year just defers you doing that another year.
Can you use part of it, or?
You can, yeah.
But for example, if we were to use some of the workers' compensation restricted funds, and next year we have a higher than average people getting hurt and going on a workman's comp, that cushion's not there anymore. So we're kind of crossing our fingers that we don't run into problems, at least in the short run, until we can replenish it.
Any other questions on this slide, or we move forward?
Thank you.
Okay, so what happens if we go under another contingency budget? Well, we need to come up with that 1.9 million. So there's three different options for that for 26-27. We take the 1.9 million and we make 1.9 million in cuts, or we do a combination of cuts and fund balance to the total of that 1.9 billion, or we use all unassigned fund balance, so that's the 1.4 million dollars, but we would have to also do with that an estimated 509,000 in cuts.
So we want to avoid this scenario at absolutely all costs.
So if we use the last bullet, let's say we use all unassigned fund balance and we make those cuts, and we go out for the budget for 27-28. So our unassigned fund balance will be completely depleted, and we will need to close a $1.9 million shortfall plus any contract or CPI increases that we may have for that year.
Is that possible?
Anything's possible, but it's what kind of a school you're going to have at the end of the day.
So it's not possible.
Jeff, you said we want to avoid that at all costs. Can you elaborate on why we want to avoid that at all costs?
Well, $1.9 million on a $15 million budget is going to be a significant cut into program. We're a labor-intensive, education is a labor-intensive organization, so we're not going to make that up in paper clips and supplies and materials. It's going to be, unfortunately, people and people equal program. So we're going to be a very different school district if we wind up in this scenario.
Just to put a little flesh on the bones, for example, we would not be able to do what? We would not have a teacher for every grade level at the elementary level. We wouldn't be able to offer required classes at the high school. What are we talking here?
Well, we would have to look at a lot of different scenarios. We would have to do a lot of combining. We could be combining class at the elementary. We could be cutting back significant staff at the high school. It would all depend. There's different scenarios that we could do. I don't want to say specifically any one of them because that would be a board decision after much consternation. So it would be a number of districts. We might wind up like a Mechanico Hills. We might wind up as a K-5 as an example. I'm not saying that would happen. That's a possibility because you're asking me what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't really be competitive. We wouldn't really be able to put out a competitive product.
No.
No. Okay.
Or offer a reasonable education.
Right. I mean, we're looking to attract students. So this is a very important time in the existence of the school and the town, and the greater community. And if we're not going to be able to attract students, then, the future of the area is not looking all that bright.
No, but we've had another slide to address that.
So, kind of like before, this one compares now adding in a contingency budget again and 26 and 27. The chart on the right, that is comparing the blue line now to the yellow line, okay? So you'll see the revenue loss there now through the 4 years, and that total now would come to $1,817,045. And then we also have to be looking for future considerations. It is important to also look into the future. So 5-year strategic plan, develop an essential roadmap for long-term and operational success, demographic insights, population trends to ensure accurate resource allocation, and of course a build-out schedule driven by the assessment data to align facility growth with student needs.
So just to talk about these things a little bit, and remember this stuff, when I first got here, we weren't talking about these things because we were under the impression that the development was going to be happening and happening sooner. And at that time, well, it's happening now. So the things that we expected 3 years ago, it's happening now. The homes are being built. I've been up there, the board's been up there. The homes are selling like hotcakes. They've increased the price of the homes. The stacked townhomes are going for about $1 million. Didn't I hear that correctly up there? And so are the single-family homes. So they're selling like hotcakes up there. So we are going to. It's no longer a question: is the development ever going to happen? Because this thing has been going on for almost a generation. It is occurring, and it's happening quite rapidly. I want to thank the assessor's office. They've been tremendous over the last few years. Unfortunately, they're overwhelmed right now. We're hoping to get some numbers from them. I do have a build-out schedule from the developer, which is subject to change. But if I'm able to assign assessment numbers to Walter and I, if we can assign some assessment numbers to the build-out schedule, we can develop a 5-year revenue plan. And certainly, if we get updated enrollment projections that are accurate, then we can, because that's the main driver of a school, the cost driver is the students. So if we can get that information, we can develop a 5-year plan. Unfortunately, we don't have that data right now. So to some extent, we're flying blind because we don't have that information. So right now, the goal is to get over this hump right now. We just got to get through this year. We've got to avoid a contingency budget at all costs. So a demographic study is absolutely essential. Getting the cost to the build-out schedule, the assessments, and then we need to develop a 5-year strategic plan. That'll be a rolling plan. Every year we'll update it. But these things are all key to our financial future.
So just to follow up with what I think is relevant to what you were saying, Jeff, we're in a very unique situation in that we have significant population growth literally on the horizon, right? It's not a maybe, it's a yes. So a failure to adequately fund the schools at this point is potentially dealing ourselves a mortal blow when the finish line is 2 feet in front of us. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely. We're almost there. And what we've got to do is we've got to build a program in a school that will attract these new community members into our schools. This district has all the key ingredients to be a top 100 district. We just all have to pull together and make that happen.
So in conclusion, we are in the middle of a storm right now. We have had significant financial pressures between the budget impact, decrease in state aid, our contingency budget, but the future for this school does look brighter, a lot brighter. As mentioned before, top 100 schools, we have the Tuxedo Reserve build out, 5-year strategic planning, renew fiscal stability, invest in student success, low stable tax rate, and increase enrollment.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
yeah, before you wrap it up, I just want you to go back to the slide on the fund balance. We did this a couple of weeks ago, but I just want to go over the tax increases for these years.
Okay.
Because, it's very important, I think, as we're moving forward, and we're looking at this budget, and we're obviously gonna, we're gonna have to have a lean budget going forward, to say the least, being we are in contingency. I really feel, in my opinion, of course, that the taxpayers have really been very lucky here with this school. The school is kind of a goose that lays golden tax eggs. And just to go back over some of these years, and put numbers to them, it's really, it's amazing that we're operating as well as we are with what we have.
And when you say lays golden tax eggs, Will, you mean that in that the taxes are low, not high?
Absolutely, and everybody does know that, whether they like to admit it or not. But I mean, what you get per square foot is really amazing. And I mean, if you talk to people in surrounding districts, when was the last time they got a 1.5% tax increase in their school taxes? They look at you like you have three heads. This one here, 21-22, was a zero. That was a 0% tax increase. That was a gift. The year after that, 1%. All right? I mean, it's insane. Right here, 22-23, that was 2.8%. Still not near inflation. All right? The year after that was 23-24, was 1.8%. And last year we were in austerity, which is a zero. So I think, Chris, you and I figured that out together. It's like, 1 point.
It's 1.1% tax rate increase over a 5-year period.
Year over year for 5 years. It's, people need to understand that these things are, unsustainable at some point. We do need to, slowly but surely, if we're going to build a top 100 school district, we're going to need to, slowly tick up here with our revenue. So, thank you.
Our mill rate is about 80, low 80s, correct? So a similar home in one of our neighboring districts, the taxes would be almost double. So I don't think it's in anybody's interest, even if you don't have a student in the school, it's not in anybody's interest to be other than Tuxedo and be other than a top 100 school district. So, and I know, and I've said this to the staff earlier, there's people who have different opinions about this or that. And I just say that we've all got to pull together here. So if there's anybody who has any comment or their unhappiness about where we are or what we've done or what's happened in the past, we've got to just say to them, take the high road. How can we make you a yes voter? And what can we do to do that? So we all have to pull together. This is a very difficult time, but once we get over, there is a sunlit rainbow. So we just got to get through this year, and we've got to do it together.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Walter. And Jeff, also thanks for explaining a lot of, going a little more in depth with our questions and what the charts were showing. If we can get the lights, please, Dante.
Does everybody have one?
So we've had multiple conversations as a board already with some
I'll share.
possible items to cut. And I would note, right after this discussion, we will have public comment. I'd ask people to stay around for that because this next couple months are going to be very important for the future and well-being of the children of Tuxedo. So I'm glad for those that are watching this. There's actually several large groups in the audience. Thank you all for coming. The chart in front that I've just sent around to everybody is what I would call, based on previous conversations, the low-hanging fruit. I think we can get through this list tonight. It's not everything on the larger list, but I think a lot of these are going to have longer discussions. So I like to get through what I think we can get through. So if you look at the first column, that denotes where that falls on the bigger list, but it kind of goes from the money, et cetera, and I think we can perhaps cut things to the tune of almost $700,000 by quick agreement tonight, and we're saving or deferring or kicking the can down the road for the harder arguments, which we can start tonight, but I don't think we're going to finish tonight. Does that make sense? All right, so just to start off, and I don't want to talk the whole time, so the first thing, very simply, and people in the audience, some of this might be trivial or menial, but everything we're talking about now saves money. Theoretically, it saves program. It's cutting some programs, but it's saving other programs. So the first thing is defer trailer purchases a year. We need a new trailer, but put it off, saving of $14,000. Any discussion on that?
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Right, that's
I'd
an
love
easy-
to cut
start easy.
things that are things and won't really affect the students,
Right,
so.
so
that-
I'm gonna run through this, but as soon as there's a question or comment, the board has to speak up, because slow me down when you need to. Second item, defer the lawnmower purchase that we need desperately, but for $6,000, that can wait. All right? Field trips, save $6,000 by cutting field trips in half. You can look, yeah, you can use the numbers, right? Okay, keep going. Eliminate guest speakers for assemblies will save $5,000. I'm going to ask other people to take over in a few minutes, a few more lines, so I'm not doing them all. Stipends, yep, yep.
There's a suggestion that rather than eliminating the guest speakers, we cut it. And I'm not sure,
By how much?
it's on this chart.
Make it 3,500.
Can you give how did you come with to that number? What's the rationale there?
I'm going to defer to the principals, Mr. Kemar and Ms. Park. You guys back there? We're cutting the guest speakers to 3,500 as opposed to cutting the whole 5,000.
That was looking at the overall cost at 5,000, looking at a reduction. We do use that number in consortium with the PTO, looking at our character ed assemblies. So a full reduction would eliminate that. So this was just a partial suggestion.
So, well, and we're taking suggestions now. We don't have to decide everything this moment, so I'll just going to amend that to reduce to 3,500, by 3,500, or the entire 5,000. Any comments on that now?
Yeah, I
Okay,
would not
Jeff.
be in favor of reducing the entire amount. I would be, because I think some of this
Well,
is
just
really
to be clear,
important.
no one wants to reduce it by $1.
Yeah.
But
No,
if we have to cut something more important, would you consider reducing it in full is the question. Although I'll put a question mark that if we have extra money, for those watching air quotes, we can always put it back in. I'd like to put it all back in, but again.
I would
that's
cut it by
the same
half.
Right, to address Susan's concern, can we, at this first pass, cut it to the amount recommended by the principal Kmart, and then if we need to revisit?
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay,
asking.
certainly.
So change it from 5,000 to 1,500?
Right, we're Jared, are we saying cut it by 3,500 or cut it by 1,500 to retain 3,500? Was your suggestion?
Cut it by 1,500.
Okay, making sure.
Gary.
The going rate on that would be roughly 2 assemblies per year.
But that's, if somebody wants to bring that up, like I'm not gonna.
Sorry, how much is each speaker per assembly?
For example, we had one on the docket coming this spring, the presenter's $1,500.
Okay. So if there's 2 assemblies, that would be 3,000. So where's the other 2,000?
I can just speak on behalf of GGM. We have a presenter coming on Monday that the PTO is graciously splitting with us. So if they were not willing to split that cost, we would probably use that whole line for one assembly. Well, it's actually split into it's one K2 pre-K2 presentation and a 3-5 presentation. But like I said, typically that cost would be right around just over $3,000, and the PTO is sharing with us at this time.
Okay. Just to throw this out here, right? We may have stipends that we're going to look to cut that go for the course of the year. You're talking about a couple of assemblies. I mean, we have to cut a lot of costs. We really need to consider, are these appropriate enough that we need to continue to have them? To have 3 or 4 assemblies and it costs $3,500 is you may cut 2 stipends for that cost. I just think we need to think about it. All right,
So we'll circle back to that
we
one.
can come back to
Well,
it.
I don't think any decisions have been made. I think the idea is let's leave a bit in, see what number we come out at the end, and then can go back and revisit. If we put a star by ones where we're
Of course.
yeah, so these are not final.
Okay, so moving on, and after the next two, I'm going to ask somebody to volunteer to do the next half page. So the next item is, there's reduce the public relations stipend to $5,000 by reassigning a lot of the newsletters and other duties across the board, which would save $10,000. Comments or suggestions on that?
Well,
It's going to be, all these are difficult.
yep, and I like the idea of let's look at things and see where we shake out, and then come back to things if we have to. The only thing I want you to consider with this, and again, I'm not making this more priority than something else. I'm just giving you food for thought as we go through all these reductions, proposed reductions, is we might want to realize that there is a strong need for communication with the community. And also now when we've got the development coming in, especially, we don't want to pull back on communication. We want to actually increase it. So each one of these individuals that gets a $5,000 stipend is doing a specific role. And I don't know that we could put, and they all have full-time jobs, so I don't know that we'll be able to put all of them on one person or two on one person. So certainly, it's your option to reduce it back, but I just need to let you know what the operational impacts of that are. So it would definitely result in significant reductions in communication with the community, for next year.
One of the things that I think about when I'm considering these options is what can we do without for 1 year, right? What kinds of things can we shed for a year that we can layer back on without too much trauma when the ship is righted again? And so that to me seems like something that I completely hear what you're saying, that there's a real value, and I think everything that we're considering today has a real value, and nobody is suggesting that anything here is superfluous or, fat that can be trimmed. But what can we survive for 1 year without? Will it be as good? No. Will we suffer a consequence by cutting it? Yes. But can we do it without affecting the core educational mission of the school? Because we need our resources to be supporting that core educational mission, and anything that is in any regard not core to that, I think we need to seriously consider.
I agree.
Thank you.
I would have a difficult time making a comment on that unless I knew what the job responsibilities were, and to see if I could see what the job descriptions are for each of those roles, I could make a more informed decision.
We can get those for you. And again, I'm not pushing back on anything. It's my job to just inform you of what might be the ramifications or consequences of all the things that we're doing.
And Susan, we're not deciding this tonight. We're simply going through this, at least this list tonight, to say, okay, we have a better idea of, if as a consensus, we kind of agree we could for 1 year, these are the least things that would hurt. What money do we have? Because then we can see how close we are. Do these cuts get us halfway there, or 80% there, or 110% there, where we can replace some things back into the budget?
But I guess what I'm wondering is there's two ways you can approach it. You can prioritize the stipends and then say, in different ways, or you can just do a small reduction across the board that makes it evenly spread.
I'm not talking about stipends,
So-
I'm talking about everything right now.
No, but this was specifically
You
about a specific stipend.
Right.
So
which stipends are you talking about?
why are we
Club
not looking at
stipends?
all stipends?
We are.
Clubs.
This, just to be clear, this is not my list. This is conversations with the board, putting your suggestions on a piece of paper to see where we have a consensus. This is not me, this is not Jeff, this is, the 7 of us have spoken about each and every one of these topics. I put this on a chart to discuss the arguably low-hanging fruit. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt to cut these things. It just means we have to come up with somewhere between $750,000 to $1.3 million in cuts we have to come up with cuts. We can go through every single budget line, but we've already agreed that these are the most likely, easiest things to cut.
We have not agreed on that.
We haven't?
No, this is a
So
specific.
which things have we not spoken about?
We've spoken about it, but we didn't agree on it.
We didn't agree to discuss them? Of
We
course
agreed to
did.
discuss
That's
them.
what we're doing.
Right, but
We're
we
not,
didn't.
I'll say it again. We're not deciding on things tonight. We are discussing things. It's going to be very difficult to cut anything. We're not cutting anything tonight. We are deciding as a group, don't put this on me, we're deciding as a group, these are the topics we're going to discuss. We're going through them now.
Yeah, no one's agreed on anything, and we're just discussing.
We did agree to
No,
add this to a chart.
Yeah, no one's putting anything on anybody. We're just trying to get through it. I know
Right,
it's a
because we're not
stressful
changing the
time.
plan all of a sudden.
So let's move forward. We'll come back to that.
Can I just quickly say, we didn't as a group discuss anything, right? These are individual ideas that we collectively pooled without discussion. So just to make it clear that this is the first time that
Yes.
we are discussing this, and so if you guys see some,
Right, so as
we're
part of-
working this out in front of you,
Right,
right?
so
We're
as part of my
replaying-
discussion, I'm saying
yeah.
I would not be in favor.
Right, and I think that's totally fine, right? Because we're discussing it for the first time. Okay.
And the input was from all 7 members.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. All right, so the next bunch are all athletics. So I'm going it quickly only because you'll hear the amount, you'll hear the team. So cut varsity basketball, replace it with JV, saves $2,094. Cut modified basketball teams and offer intramurals instead, saves $3,155. Cut modified soccer, $2,443. Flag football replaced with JV softball, saves $340. Cut varsity baseball replaced with JV, $2,094. Transportation reductions, we think, for cutting the above athletics would be an additional $5,000. Eliminate JV volleyball, $6,162. And I think I'll take a break from that and ask for a volunteer to continue. Any discussion or comments about that? We're just trying to see if a consensus of the board were maybe to say, yes, this whole list of 2 pages, what would the savings be? Because we'll see how close we are before we deep dive into every single potential cut that any one of us has suggested.
What impact would that have to the student population, cutting these sports?
We went through this, the administration went through this with the athletic director, and we did that with an eye on a $750,000 reduction, and with trying to continue the athletic program as effectively as possible. And this is the best scenario that he's come up with. He thinks we can still run a very viable program by doing it in this manner, considering where we have strengths for varsity, junior varsity, or modified. Is there anything you want to add to that, Mr. Kmar? Because I know you also had significant discussions with our AD as well.
Just a couple of points that we're taking into consideration. To Chris's point, always looking at impact to kids. When you make a reduction, how to create the most opportunity for as many kids as possible.
Yeah.
So for example, with a sport carrying a varsity JV modified, if you made a JV cut, theoretically, your 7th, 8th, and 9th graders could participate in modified A, and your 10th, 11th, and 12th graders could participate in the varsity program. Well, that, of course, will lead to less overall opportunity, reduction in minutes, the whole 9. It would allow at least for a place for each kid interested to land. And then the same concept looking at when you have a reduction to a program, offering an intramural that those kids would have an opportunity to land at. And then, of course, keeping in mind regulations specific to federal legislation like Title IX, equal opportunities for all student athletes.
So suffice to say, the board didn't pick these teams or programs or numbers out of the air. It was in consultation with the admin, athletic directors, et cetera, and our lawyer.
So I have a question, and I don't mean any question to imply that I don't see value in what I'm discussing. But would it be possible, what would be the pros and the cons of outsourcing the athletic program entirely by joining forces with Chester or some other school?
You look like you want to take this one, Jared, so go right ahead.
I was deferring, but as directed. Bronwyn, of course, and this is just me commenting from my chair in my lens is in my principal role. And when we look at these things, I think of the slide with the 3 buckets of where we are, what getting to the percentage that you think might be supported might look like, and then catastrophic contingency. My personal opinion, if you're asking it, would be, that would be a catastrophic bucket. From my formal lens, lots of impact, thinking of our kids, limited opportunity where you're now competing for a spot in another school, you're really gonna limit the opportunity of our kids. You're busing them all to another district. It would probably have to be multiple districts. I don't know if a member school in Section 9 would accept all of our student athletes, so it might be piecemealing and sending kids off to different locations. There would just be a real lot to consider there. Understanding that all things may end up on the table, but that would be something I would recommend as high school principal, deferring to the last possible.
I think one of the reasons I ask is because I want to make sure that people listening in the community know that we're taking this very seriously, and we're really trying to think about all options, and anything that we cut will have an impact, and so we're trying to figure out where that impact can be the least harmful. So if something is suggested that seems extreme, it's in part so that everybody knows that nothing in theory is off the table, but now we need to build it back in a way that preserves what the core mission of the school.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, Bronwyn, and piggyback that to your question earlier in the evening about, hypothetically, meat on the bone, what might some contingent items look like? Many districts in a contingent budget, all athletics and extracurriculars are something that's considered as a cut. So when I say that would be a catastrophic item, that certainly would have great impact on our students.
Jared, would the Section 9 have to approve that in the first place anyway, for us to combine with any other school district?
Yeah, the league and this section would have to approve any kind of merger of teams.
Yeah, and I don't want you to, if you don't feel like comfortable speculating, do you think that is a highly likely scenario?
I think the section counterparts are always considerate of member districts and the plights that you're in. If it meant that's the only option for our kids, then I'm sure there would be consideration for an option like that. But it's always considered across the region a last-ditch effort to provide opportunity for kids when all other options.
So this is going to be, if we hit the contingency, this is going to be a reality. We take it out at that point. Yep.
Any other questions on sports? All right, Jean-Michel's agreed to take over.
Okay, so the next item, and non-required conferences and professional development, would be to eliminate non-required conference and professional development at a savings of $35,000. No comments?
I have a question. Is that number accurate, Jeff, do you think? Non-required conferences and professional development, a savings of $35,000. I think the budget has about 48,000 approximately.
Yeah. This would be difficult because we are required to provide professional development. So that's a significant amount from that. We can't eliminate certain conferences because they're mandated. We obviously have to stay up to date with all the educational requirements, all the mandates. Jared, aren't we this year? Just give them an example. Some of the things that some of our teachers have gone. I think there was some social studies and some science issues this year. If you would go into some of that.
Yeah, and just without the full numbers in front of me, there are several lines with PD opportunities where each building has a professional development line, and then we have district level professional development lines, and then there's professional development embedded in the administrative lines as well.
Right. No, what I mean is this year we sent a couple of teachers for mandated trainings in changing areas from the state, correct?
Yeah, for example, when mandates come down, recall last year, the literacy mandates coming down from the city that we were required to send staff to some of those trainings, so we're compliant for September 1. As Regents exams change and curriculum change and state exams across 3-8 change. They want staff out there to find the changes and then turn key them back in home district. Just take some examples. Other times, curriculum changes right now with the climate curriculum and personal finance curriculum being mandated for next year for secondary ed. That's adopted for high schools. There's training that we want our team out there receiving so they can implement that content.
And also, there's some changes coming up in math as well, correct?
Correct.
Similar to the literacy.
Yeah, so that would be a line where there's likely room for reduction, but it's really not something to focus on.
Correct, and we also, if we're going to be considering consolidating a number of positions in the school district, obviously the new folks that are going to be doing these jobs are going to need some training as well. So if we want to continue things effectively, we're going to have to provide training. We just had a retirement, and some of the duties there, for example, are going to be, need to be put into another person's hands, and they don't have any experience with this, so we're going to have to provide some training. So it's not something that we can cut completely. We can make some cuts here and there, but we have to have superintendent's conference days. We have to have training for the staff.
But we're leaving some money in there,
Right.
so the question is.
So what's a realistic
What's a
number?
realistic number?
We didn't eliminate it, we were just cutting it.
So
what's a fair
what's
number?
a good number, you think? Could you?
I think what I'd like to do is get back with the group,
Fine.
especially after considering some of the cuts that we're going to be making, or some of the retirements hopefully that we get, and as other staff, I'd like to see, because that's going to cost certain amounts of money. So I'll come back to you with that.
So can I just ask one question of Walter? Of this money, of the $48,000, what have we spent fiscal year to date?
This year.
This year, yes.
You might need a minute, we'll come back.
Yeah, we can come back to it. Absolutely. Yeah, all right. It's just that we're in April. If the budget was $48,000 and we've only spent 13,
Right, we'll find out.
So-
We'll come back.
Yep.
Walter, let us know when you have that number.
thanks, Walter.
All right, Jam.
Okay, so the next one, that's marked as highest stipends, and cutting the assistant athletic director, which would be a savings of $3,600.
So this is a contractual stipend. It's actually the athletic director stipend of $9,400. It's in the teacher's contract. The athletic director shares his stipend with the assistant. He currently gets paid $5,800, and she gets $3,600. So if you cut the assistant, then it folds back contractually to the athletic director.
What opportunities would we have to renegotiate some of these stipends in order to preserve programming? Do we have any flexibility to try that option?
We do. When the TTA contract was settled, the last time we left open athletic and extracurricular activities, correct, David? David, thank you for being here tonight on your birthday. Happy birthday. Okay. That's how important this was to David, to be here on his birthday to help us through this. But those in the contract, those two items were left open for negotiation. So we certainly can get together with the TTA and renegotiate those. I think a number of those stipends had been from years ago when we were a larger district. And when you look at some of the stipends, if you look at like a varsity coach typically also supervises the junior varsity and the modified teams. But in many instances, we don't have those other components. We just may have a varsity or a junior varsity. So I think those things are definitely things that we can renegotiate. And I just don't know how fast you think we could get that done, David. Yeah. Okay, so that's something we'll put on David's table. We'll help you.
So the next one we have marked as high in stipends is cutting the district STEM advisor for savings of $3,423.
So this is a decision that the board has to make, and I'm going to provide you a lot more information on that. We've just been so busy getting all of this information together in a short span of time. The district as we know, is one of the few districts in the nation that's STEM certified, and it's been a big component of the school for many years. It's been a draw, and as we know that it's the world is going in a STEM direction. So do we want to be a STEM school? So I think part of the STEM certification, which is up next year, entails having a STEM advisor. So if we cut that, we're making a decision to not be a STEM school, for as long as we don't have an advisor, because we need somebody to drive the program, put in the application, make sure people are getting the proper training, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a decision that we have to make. I'm just advising you of what the consequences would be.
So can there be a gap of a year, and then you get recertified after a year later, or does it have to be continuous, the certification?
I will get that answer for you. We'll get that answer for you.
So to continue with STEM, you have to have a STEM advisor in place, is what you're saying?
Well, if you want to keep the certification, for sure, yeah.
Is that a part of the requirement
Yeah,
from
it's a
the program
requirement.
itself?
Yeah.
But the amount of the stipend is something that we arrived at internally, or that also is dictated by the program?
I think that's probably in the contract. Walter, do you recall? If the STEM advisor is a contractual? I'm 99% sure it is.
Yeah, but if it was budgeted for this current year, I could carry that over into next year.
But it's right in the TTA contract, correct? That amount?
Yeah, I believe so.
We'll take a look and we'll verify the amount, and if we can. We'll check the contract and we'll get back to you on it. We can see if we can negotiate it.
Okay, so the next one, marked as high as well as in stipends, is cutting the middle school Interact Club with the savings of $1,712.
So what would that leave the middle school to have as far as clubs go?
Principals, clubs, we're in the club discussion. That's your realm of expertise.
Our club opportunities, I don't have the full list in front of us, but there's more opportunity at the high school, less at the middle school, even less at GGM. So there are only several for our middle school students. Interact is one of them. So as you may cuts to that's of consideration.
Yeah, and that's why I asked, because my kids have gone through middle school. There's very, very little opportunity for them to have any participation in clubs in middle school. So we would be cutting. They might have one club.
Yeah, that'd be one of the things, as we said before. I think in a contingency budget, that would be would be too much of an option there. I think the clubs, and as Mr. Kamar mentioned, the sports is typically in districts on contingency. Those things go. So I don't know, if we can make the 750 without that, but we can certainly come back to it.
Yeah, it's just not making our district competitive. Like if kids are going to want to go to other schools, if they see our school and our middle school gives you one club.
Yeah. So next one, also marked as high in co-curricular, is combining the National Junior Honor Society and the National Honor Society. Number 24. And if we can't combine them, then perhaps cutting the National Junior Honor Society for a savings of $4,000.
Somebody from that side want to take over?
Sure. Cutting the engineering club, savings $3,490.
So, Will, I think that's another one of those things with the STEM program. We have to have a club, some sort of a club, either a robotics club or an engineering club, in order to maintain the STEM certification. I'll verify with the STEM advisor, but I believe when we discussed it, that was what we were told.
What's the participation
I was
rate
gonna say,
of
what
the
are the numbers?
engineering club?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know, Jared? Okay.
Is it actively running this year?
Not sure. Not sure.
Well, if
We'll
it's
get
not
that
actively
information.
running this year, how can it be necessary for the certification?
I think there's another club in its stead. I don't know which club it is, but I think there's a different club.
So if there's another club that's meeting the requirement for this year, if that other club was to remain, then we could cut this one without risking the certification, or am I misunderstanding? Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think when they went through the clubs, I think they eliminated a few of them. But we'll check with that. In fact, I'll see if I can get the STEM advisor here, and he's also the AD, so we can discuss the athletics and the STEM program at the same time. And I'll try to get you, before the next meeting, a blurb about, because you had asked me about, what STEM is, what it means, all that detailed information.
Okay, engineering club. Next cut school association dues, subscriptions, for savings of $6,000.
So, Ms. District Clerk, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to do it? The school association dues, isn't that the,
Any idea?
I don't.
bear with me.
It's only cutting it in half.
I think it's cutting.
Oh, yeah, I don't think
Oh,
we,
cutting it in half? Okay.
yeah, we didn't get to that one yet. We're doing the research on that.
12,300 down to
Yeah.
6.
But I think David said at the last meeting that we can cut some of those dues. Yes. He's nodding yes.
Small library items.
Oh, yes, okay, I'm sorry, forgive me. These are subscriptions, I gotta get the detail on that. The list that you had given me, that you folks had given me, we had gotten through a bunch of them, we didn't get through everything about the research. Yep, so that one we didn't get anything on yet.
So we were looking to cut it in half for 6,000. Can the testing coordinator be added to somebody's job responsibilities?
Yes,
Saving of $5,000.
yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that's a good one. Cut the NISBA and the OXPA memberships.
Okay, that's the one we were talking about.
I'm gonna answer on the NISBA end of it. The NISBA cannot be, only because we do our policy maintenance through that. So our policy, we go through NISBA, so we have to be a member in order to have our policy manual. We're in the process of having
Of
that.
updating it.
Yep, so that's something that we really couldn't,
Once the
sidebar.
policy manual is updated, could it be paused? I'm not thinking
I mean,
necessarily for this year.
it could be paused, but any mandated policies that do come out or any policies that are revised, we wouldn't then be able to do that. We'd have to wait the year.
You'd have to wait the year
And then it
until
would
you
depend on
subscribe
the
again.
severity of that policy. I mean, could it? It's a possibility,
I'm
but
not getting a necessary savings here, so,
Yeah, the next couple, we don't have savings amount, we're
Which is-
still
which
waiting
is
for that
fine.
information.
Yeah.
well, that's 15, right?
What about OXPA? Is there any reason we need to be a member?
Oh, I'm gonna defer to Susan on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I know, look, everything is valuable. That's the baseline, right? So you could make an argument, a strong and reasonable argument for literally everything that
Everything
we're talking
on here.
about. But is it essential to operate as a educational institution?
I think that part of part of the membership to OXPA is paying for what they do as a service to us, so that they go to the legislature and they they bring up all the things for the budgets so that they can try to keep costs down and be able to get more money for the districts. They are advocates to the
But they're
state.
going to
So
continue to advocate even if
I mean,
our
that's what I'm
little
thinking is-
district isn't a member.
And why can't we pause it for a year?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to follow up with them to find out. I'm not sure
we
if
have
that
any-
would mean that we are not able to have a seat at the meetings. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Do we know what the cost is, Jeff? By any chance? You can come back to us. No big deal.
Yep. I'll get that for you.
I mean, one of the things that I'm thinking about, and especially in terms of these board-related things, is I want the board to shed absolutely everything that is not legally mandated for us to have, because before I start asking people for whom this is their profession to make sacrifices, I think that the board needs to make sacrifices. And so that's why I wouldn't argue that it's not valuable, but I think as a show of good faith, and also because I think it's a reasonable thing to relinquish for a year, that would be high on my list. Yeah, no, our budget line is not very big at all, but I mean, so it's more of a show of good faith, but I think it's an important show of good faith, and to the extent that, you know, every penny ultimately will count, and so that's what I have to say about that.
All right, cut teacher supplies to a minimum. We don't have a number on the savings here with this, but obviously have to be stipend given across the board.
No, I don't think it's a stipend. I think
correction,
they get
poor choice of
they get
words.
an annual allowance
Allotments.
for
Allotment,
supplies. I think it's $700. Is a
So-
guess.
So we would be looking to lower it from $700?
Yes.
Okay. To something more reasonable
I
to be
mean,
determined later.
I think we'd need to get some input from the staff to determine if we could.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that number is really low and that a lot of teachers put in their own money to buy things for the classes. So it's going to have, I mean, that's going to have a pretty negative impact.
Oxbow is $750.
Okay. Okay, art supply budget to the minimum. That would, I don't know the exact savings on that, but art obviously is, supply intensive.
If you don't have supplies, you can't do art.
That's right.
But could we pare it down a little? I mean, the art supplies items on the budget is high. I don't know if art supplies are more expensive than other supplies. I'm assuming that's why
Do you know what
it's
the
so
budget?
high.
Jared, Jenna, do you think that you could speak to our art teacher and find out what we could pare that back to? Yep. And we'll get back to the board.
Thousands. Okay.
Next one is board docs. I think the number on that was 15,000.
Yeah, I think it's 15.
So if I remember correctly, that was 15K.
Can we live without board
Can
docs
we live
for?
without board docs?
It's,
Yes.
it would be, the short answer is yes, every cut would hurt, that would be it, I know it would be a nightmare,
Well-
because that's how we do our agendas and our notices and our policies.
But
you
there's
can
also
speak
there's also a state mandate coming in December and January that everything has to be filed with New York State electronically. So board docs will be switching over to a new platform to be able to then work with the state everything has to be sent directly to the state with the budgeting, the voting and all of that.
Are there other platforms that interface with the
There's
state
two
other than board
platforms-
docs?
There's two platforms currently out. Board docs is actually the cheapest.
There's something more expensive? I thought board docs was pretty expensive at
No,
15
the other one is
grand.
20-something thousand, yeah. It's,
So, Walter, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
you're
Go ahead.
okay. You
Go
could
ahead.
pause until like December, but come January, it's gonna be a state where everything has to be certified and electronically stamped. So,
Walter, just correct me, but for the art supplies, 2110, 15, 13, 11. I've got $1,300, and that's K5, and regular art supplies 612, 2110, 5, 13, 12 is 3,000. So a total of $4,300, correct?
Whoa.
Yes.
Good.
4,300?
4,300, yeah.
For the
So
school, for the whole school.
That's K-12. So Jared, you and Jenna, you'll talk to Ms. Foligno tomorrow and get some. Okay, great. So we'll get back to you on that, but at least you know that it's $4,300 in total. Sure.
Well, thank you. Any volunteers to close it out? Otherwise, I will. Bonnie, Susan,
Go for it, Gary.
anybody? Okay, so I'll, no volunteers, I'll close it out. So under the category of staffing, admin staff, a high category, the data analyst, $106,000. Thoughts on that,
Well, Jeff?
including Jeff?
Well, I want to congratulate Ms. Arlene Dyba for her many years of service with the school and announce that she has chosen to retire. So I would suggest that what we do is we consider moving some of those responsibilities to other administrative assistants, maybe with some additional, with some stipend of some amount, but certainly we'll be saving a significant amount of money, almost $100,000. So I would recommend to the board that we don't replace that position. I think that's a decision you can probably make tonight unless you want to mull it over any longer.
So do you feel that her responsibilities can be divvied out across others
For a year.
for
Yeah.
at least yeah.
I do. And I do think that it's going to require training because some of the submissions to the state are going to need some training for that. And those are all mandatory submissions that we have to make. So there'll be some training involved with that. The HR stuff certainly can be farmed out as well. So I feel confident that you can do that with the caveat that we'll probably have to take some portion of the salary to allocate it, its additional duties to others. Okay? So that one I think is a pretty safe bet, and that's about $100,000 off the 750 we need to get to.
Are there any other benefits to add to that 106,000?
I think that would be, Walter, what's the total amount there? Just remember this, though, Chris. When employees retire, they still are the health insurance still continues. So the benefits that we would reduce would be obviously FICA, Medicare, and dental. I don't think there's a dental vision component to it. So we'd save those. But obviously, when somebody goes into retirement, we still pay the health. Obviously, the health is scalable because at different ages the health insurance goes down when you hit certain age points. So, but there'll still be a health insurance component to that. But I think the savings is somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000, right, Walter? Yep. Okay.
How many years did Arlene do?
I think it's at least 20, right? 20, 25? Yeah.
At least 20 to 25 years.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Thank you, Arlene.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll address that at a future meeting, but yes.
Yep.
A couple things before we go on. Walter, number one, could you put that slide back up there and keep it back up here on the wall? The one that had the 3 columns of how much money we have to find in the 3 scenarios? Just so any public speakers and us can refer to that. Also, we're talking about staffing going forwards. Going forwards, it's appropriate to mention a name that we just did. But if
Well, that's a retirement, though.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
right, no
we,
problem.
We'd announce that anyway. I also want to say this, Gary, so that the public knows, we also did offer a retirement incentive to the to membership in the teachers union, and we're still waiting to hear back on which members might be interested in that. But if there are folks that take that retirement incentive, we will get what's called breakage. And that's the difference between, we have a step schedule, so as teachers get more experience, they get higher on the schedule, they make more money. A newer teacher obviously makes less. And so if a teacher retires at a higher step and we bring somebody back at a lower step, we call that differential breakage. So that's another area that we are looking to save money as well. And that is an attrition savings, so nobody gets hurt in that. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we definitely did offer that benefit.
Thank you. So the chart that we're going to keep up there for a while, just the second one, that teal blue, whatever you'd call that blue up there, that's what we're really targeting tonight, of how close can we get to that with some of the lower hanging fruit. That's all. God forbid that we have to go to the right column and find even more cuts. So that's just our target. How close can we get to it? We're talking about staffing. I'm going to remind the board members from this point on not to talk about specific names at this point. These are positions we're potentially thinking about cutting. And I'd also ask the principals for the last couple topics under staffing, if you have comments on any of them, how it would affect, how bad, I shouldn't say that. Everything is not will it affect us. How bad will it affect us? Please just chime in to the both of you. The next position would be do not replace an open custodial maintenance staff under maintenance topic, which would save $64,000. Any comment on that?
I think that as a full-time position, didn't that include benefits? So it's more.
Yes, that's right. And what we've been doing this year is we've been staffing that position with a substitute. So there is some cost, but we certainly save. We do have a savings, and we're recommending that we keep that as a substitute position for the for next year.
Is that number that's on this sheet accurate, including benefits, Jeff? Or would that number be up? Is that
Let's see. Do you have
Because if you add benefits, I would think.
Yeah, Walter, 64,000 accurate? Right. So that's a net savings, right? And that includes all the benefits, and we're not paying the sub any benefits, correct? You're shaking your head.
I don't think that includes the health benefit.
The 64,000?
Correct.
Oh, you have a challenge over here, Walter.
And Walter, while you're looking that up, can you, or Jeff maybe, can somebody ballpark what we've spent on the sub so far so we can get a sense of what the actual savings are?
Yeah, Walter has that. If he doesn't have it with him, he has done it. What have we saved so far this year, Walter? What have we spent rather this year on the sub?
I can do the sub line as a total.
Yeah, but that's not being accurate.
This one?
No, the sub line.
If you need time, Walter, that's fine. I don't want to put you on the spot. But we'll get that. We think it's, I'm not sure where the 64 came from, but please check that, Walter. We're looking for the net number, considering sub costs minus whatever we're saving from salary and benefits.
Correct.
Okay? The next line, it's under item 14, cut the assistant superintendent for curriculum at a savings of $210,000. Comments, thoughts on that?
Well, as we know, Mr. Kamar will be leaving us, but I think we are going to certainly need someone in that role. We not necessarily have to have an assistant superintendent. We could probably have a principal in that role. So I think certainly we should consider that. We'll do without the assistant superintendent role. I've done quite a bit of that work with the BOCES for a few years. So I think for a year we can do that. We'll come up with a number for having a principal.
Isn't that distinguished in the budget already? What portion of that is for the principal salary and what portion of that is for the?
No, we don't break it out.
Oh, we don't break it out?
No.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay.
Can we verify what that number is?
The salary? Sure.
You don't have to do it right now. Just I'd like
Walter, same thing on that?
for each one, we should really validate all the numbers.
I think it's various sources.
Made them.
Didn't they come from the budget?
I made this list, but it's based on the input that everybody gave me. So I'm not sure which
So
person
there are-
gave it.
So I have the salary right here, and then I get the benefits as well. But the number you're looking on this sheet is almost that's the salary right there.
Just the salary?
Yep, that's correct. That's for 25, 26.
Okay.
Yep. So the number you're looking at is the next year's salary, just the salary, not the bennies.
What's the salary plus benefits?
The benefits I can get you. Walt, you don't happen to have that, do you? The assistant superintendent. Jared over there. Jared, why don't you just tell us?
Don't do it.
That's right.
I'm teasing you, Jared. I'm teasing you. Don't put you on the spot. He's turning red.
Get
Okay,
it
but
later.
all these numbers have to be checked. These are ballpark numbers on.
Everything that on
some-
here
right,
should
exactly.
be checked.
But
Yeah.
can you get for us, if people participate in the health plan, they are either doing it as a single or as a family,
Correct.
and there must be a fixed
Yeah,
cost.
we do that. Yeah, we do that. The numbers that we had given you originally on the larger sheet,
larger
those
sheet.
numbers have been checked. I'm not sure necessarily
About
where
the
where these
group
came
sheet,
from. Yeah.
which
That's the
then
group sheet. So that
translated-
was an amalgamation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we'll double check that number. Anything else? All right, there's a few more. Cut 1.6 AIS at a savings of $60,000. Questions, comments on that?
You mean cut 1.6 entirely? Is that what that
I thought that was the suggestion, right? To what?
Is there a typo there?
Yeah, I'm confused now.
Maybe it's just one space. It's AIS.
I think from what we've seen this year with the scores of the kids at the elementary school, is that AIS is important to continue. It's not something that I think.
We talked about being at contractual. I think that's part of the.
We're not getting rid of the AIS.
We're not getting rid of
program.
AIS.
Explain
It's-
that, Will.
Correct, is that it's gonna be shouldered contractually by the teachers in the classroom. So, there's some, there's wiggle room in the contract here that the AIS would certainly not be eliminated.
No, I just remember hearing from Dr. Cogliano when he gave that presentation that he highly recommended keeping it. So it wouldn't be something that I would prioritize.
Couldn't agree
This,
with you more.
this is a question for Jenna. So it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that AIS at the high school can be done by subject area teachers. AIS at the elementary school, does it require a literacy certification, or is that optional? And if it does require a literacy certification, do we have somebody who is staff but not AIS specific that could provide those services?
The person who currently conducts our literacy AIS services is a certified literacy specialist. However, I'm not sure if it's a required certification to provide those services. I believe it's recommended. Echoing what everyone says, of course, if that's something that we have to look at, I can get more information on it.
And if I could just reiterate Gary's sentiment from earlier as best you can. Of course, we have David here to provide guidance to us should be needed, but as best we can when we're talking about supplies, tractors are tractors. I'll use myself as an example. When you say ASI, it's me. We know I'm leaving, so I'm okay there. If we identify a specific subgroup or department that's one, we're saying that one person, and maybe we've not had that conversation with that person, and we just want to be as generic maybe as we can to elementary service provider, elementary teacher, just as an example versus the ASI. That's all.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, a couple more here. Cutting a .6 phys ed teacher to the cost of $50,000. I'm sorry, savings of $50,000, saving that cost. Comments on that? Cutting a 6th grade teacher at a savings of $85,000.
That would be an attrition, because that role right now is being covered by a former teacher, retiree from the district. So that would, again, be an attrition. That wouldn't be someone, a termination of a permanent full-time employee. And that would be backfilled by another employee.
And finally, the cost savings would kind of be, we already previously mentioned, by cutting the assistant superintendent for curriculum, but combining the superintendent with the GFB principal. So it's not additional savings, but that would encapsulate what we spoke about several lines above. Any additional comments on that? Okay, so again, the thought, yes?
So just, we had spoken about the possibility, what do we do with the, again, I just want to keep repeating, none of this is anything anybody wants to do. But what could we do, given that Mr. Kamar is leaving? What opportunities does that create? And one of the things we thought about was combining a K-12 principal and who could fill that role. So one of the issues that we ran into was that it's a legal requirement, and anybody correct me if I get any of this wrong. This is my understanding. It's a legal requirement that there be a principal in each physical building. So Ms. Park, for instance, couldn't be the K-12 principal because her office would be in one or the other. And so one possible option, as Gary just mentioned, is that we have currently our superintendent sits at GFB. If there's an option, if there's a possibility there for the superintendent for 1 year to take over that principal position. That's the only administrator, I think, that could possibly fill that role. So that's just some of the thinking there that, and of course, there would have to be a renegotiation of a contract. I don't even know if, we don't want to name names. I don't even know if that person would be interested in that role, but,
Well, we all know who that is.
yeah, right. But so, in terms of thinking, we've thought about various ways to cut our administrative costs. And I just wanted to highlight one of the legal hurdle about of asking Miss Park if she would even consider being a K-12 principal is that we need her physically in GGM.
Okay, so that was the chart. You have a comment on that? Before
I do, yeah, actually, because
I'm
it
not
was,
ending discussion, I just was gonna wrap up the chart. Is it
No.
specific or general?
no, I just had, I had a request to pull over one thing from the larger chart to this chart that I
Okay.
felt like was an important thing to discuss, because I'd like to get teachers' input on the UPK program and what would be the impact of cutting that.
Got it. So let me just wrap up the chart and then I'll take that suggestion.
Okay.
So there were couple items here, we weren't sure of the numbers, may go up a little bit, minus a little bit. Some things we were told we couldn't do. So I wasn't keeping a running total, but the numbers that we spoke first, which I think it might be offset by some additions and deletions, that savings is just under $700,000. So even if we were to do all of these, if you look up there at that middle column in the blue, we're not even there yet. So this would not be enough. If we did all of this, and we're saying we don't want to do all of these things, which is fine, but we're going to have to find other savings. So to your suggestion, UPK was something that was discussed. It's on the other chart. I'm not sure where I don't have that handy. What was the savings going to be if we cut that? Because who's familiar enough to discuss the numbers a little bit?
You have a teacher, right? And you have a teacher assistant, right? And then you have benefits on top of that, right? And then you also have state aid for each one of the kids that participate in the UPK program, which I think is currently at either $5,400 or $5,600.
I think
and that's going
didn't we
up
learn
to
that
10.
it doubled to 10,000?
It went from 5,400 to 10,000, that's right.
what I
That's for
was-
next year? or
Next-
That's
that's
correct,
current?
that's next year.
next year.
Yep.
So Chris, keep going.
So the loss would be less because of that aid that we're getting, because that aid is almost double. So what we really need to know, Jeff, is when you take those salaries and benefits and against the number of students expected for UPK, we're probably still at a loss for UPK. I just don't know what that number actually is.
So in other words, we're not, because of the increase and the numbers change from year to year, of how many students participate, we need to know what we would save next year.
Correct.
If we were to cut UPK.
Yes.
I thought that we didn't get that money from the state because there was I thought this was mentioned once before, because we don't have, because of the number of kids we have in UPK. Don't meet
No,
a
we
certain
didn't. We didn't
number.
get what we had hoped in the budget. What we do is when we do the budget every year, we get an estimate of how many students we'll get. So 5,400 times X. So if you don't make X, if you get Y, then you're going to get a lesser amount. So it's $5,400 per student. So if the projection of how many students is inaccurate, if it winds
Okay.
up being less, we don't get the full amount.
Okay,
So the
but you still get the
5,400
the amount
you
for
still
whoever
get the
comes.
$5,400 per student, yeah.
Okay.
And next year, again, it goes up to $10,000 because the state is very serious about early learning, early childhood learning. So
So to put it in perspective, if you had 10 kids in UPK at the existing rate, that would be $54,000 we would get in state aid.
correct.
Next year, that'll be $100,000 in state aid, right? So when you take your staffing for that minus that state aid, then that's, you're still going to be at a loss, but it'll be less of a loss next year.
Also, do we have enrollment projections? Have we done the enrollment projections for pre-K yet? Do we know? Yeah, for next year, do we have a sense of how many kids are coming?
While PK orientation has been posted, and we've set it up locally, Ms. Dixon has connected with the town and other local entities. I believe we currently, as of yesterday, had 6 students or families signed up for our UPK orientation. Again, as of yesterday, when I last checked. That doesn't mean that there's not That's not a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, they have several more months to sign up. That's just the ones you told us now.
When do families typically sign their kids up for UPK?
That I do not know.
What's the deadline, Jenna?
Looking up, just give me 1 second. Pre-K orientation, for those listening, if you'd like to attend, is 1 week from today. So families would typically sign up for the orientation. Should we have the need for a lottery, that would be on June 4th.
Historically, Jenna, have you seen any, in your experience, does the number of families that come to the orientation tend to match the number of kids that end up enrolling, or do you see a difference?
I would have to look at the data from the families that attended last year to this year.
Sorry, how many kids are in UPK this year?
What is it right now?
14.
I currently have 14 students in UPK.
But the prior year, there were only 7, so it really fluctuates.
It does.
All right. Anything else for what we've discussed? Obviously, we're not done talking about these items, and we could drop items from this list. We can add items to this list. We do have another chart with a lot more items, but at this time, if there's no objection, I'd like to move on to public comment, whether it's a general public comment or specific to the budget. There are a lot of people here. See? Yep.
May I just make one comment that
Sure.
of the $699,513,000 that are counted here, if all the staffing cuts were allowed as they're figured here, it comes up to $575,000.
The staffing alone.
The staffing alone,
Right.
which is significant.
Although I think, Jean-Michel, these numbers aren't completely accurate because, like, for instance, with the maintenance staff, I don't know that is taking out the cost of the sub for the assistant superintendent of curriculum. That's not considering the fact that we would need some portion of that salary if there was a combined role, would need to be paid, right? So these are just portions, so I wouldn't be too tied to these numbers.
And we also need to validate these numbers on here as well to include benefits. If there's any additional benefit.
But if they are,
Walter's nodding his head because he knows that's coming to him.
but if they're in the
You can use this as a ballpark number,
shows
absolutely.
That's a significant
It
percentage
is,
of what we're looking
yes.
to cut already.
Right.
Which is encouraging.
No, I think our numbers are close, and I think where we're wrong, it's gonna kind of offset each other. So we're close, but we'll get the exact numbers. Okay, so if we can get the lights on, we'll keep the chart up there if we could. People in the audience, who would like to speak first?
Come on down.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing I just forgot to mention. Our student representative is present. I just wanted to make sure the minutes so reflected that. If you want to give a report, you can just do it now. No pressure as a public comment, just because we're already in that section. If you don't, that's fine too. Okay, just wave me off.
Good.
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Do you want me to say my name?
Name?
Erica Stearns, 25 Schoolhouse Road. So I just have a question about the budget comparison. The first column on the left, did I understand this correctly, that if that's where we fall, well, that's where we currently are, correct?
Yes.
That's what they would call a carryover. It means if everything was just,
Didn't make any
Look-
changes.
Right, any changes. So, but am I correct in understanding that would be a 9% tax increase to the homeowner?
yes.
Okay.
Because of increased costs. Right.
I'm just making sure I understand that that's what that meant.
And it's great because we do this a lot, but just, this is why it's been beaten into my head too, is that the tax rate is what we pay versus the tax levy, which is sort of what the spending in general goes up.
Got it.
But when you open your tax bill, the rate is really what you're gonna be paying.
Okay, and then, but what we're trying to do with all these cuts is get to that middle one, which is 3.85.
Yep.
Correct.
Or thereabouts.
Okay, and then I heard you talking about cutting the assemblies, and I know there was some concern, but perhaps if you were able to cut some of those assemblies, reaching out to the community to see if there's anybody who could offer those same services for way reduced or for free. So if that's something that you could cut, I mean, being in education, I get it. You want those assemblies, but if that's something you can cut, there are many people in our community that could do assemblies as well. I think that's it. Oh, I do have concerns about my children are not in the high school, but I would have concerns with the superintendent also being the principal. I think that's just, there's too much happening. We're talking about finances here. There's a lot that goes into that. I mean, you have your big binders here, and then on top of that, students and teachers and parents and issues. I would have concern with that just administratively and as a teacher, like being able to access the principal when needed. And I know Ms. Park is here as well, but I just really think you have to think about that maybe that might not be the best for our students and teachers as we're going through this, I don't know, budgetary phase here. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully it's just a phase, Erica. Hopefully it's just a phase.
Next. I'm looking at people on particularly. Does anybody else wish to speak? Going once?
No.
Oh, I was about to ask, no emails
No
came
emails.
in?
No.
Okay, we'll close the public portion comment. I believe we're ready for executive session. Is there anything else I missed? Okay, so I'll ask a motion to move into executive session. I do not expect action afterwards. We have questions for legal counsel on some legal matters. Also, there's one, what did we notice, Chris? I forgot, I'm forgetting. We noticed three areas.
C, D, and F.
Can you remind, I wasn't ready. What were the 3 areas?
Information relating to current or future investigation or prosecution of a criminal offense, discussions regarding proposal or pending and current litigation, and the medical, financial, credit, and employment history of a particular person or corporation.
Perfect. Those, all 3 of those. But we do not expect action afterwards. It is now 9:25. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's go upstairs.
took another job, so.
All right.
Once again, good evening, everybody. It is 10:34. We are back from executive session. Do I have a motion to return to the regular session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have no action to take. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, everybody. For the record, we will be sending out a notice of another meeting we will have this coming Monday here in a remote location at 7:30, but the official notice will go out separately. Thank you and good night.